Hello and good day. I believe it's January 8th, day after the Clemson win last night. Congratulations. They played pretty well against Alabama there. I'm Philip Branton, the revoked civil servant here. And on this update for January 8th, I just want to give you two articles to consider here. Now, if you're new and haven't gone back, and maybe when you have a chance, check out some of my previous updates. I think it'll be worth your time. One is from The Guardian. It's an article describing how the ex-Credit Suisse bankers are arrested in a $2 billion fraud investigation. I'll get to the other one here shortly, but in this article, it's talking about some bankers that have been basically, under indictment, under investigation for 5 years, and it goes back to looting funds for Mozambique there in Africa. Now I know you're asking, well, Chris, why do I care? Well, I'll get to that. So it says basically 3 former Credit Suisse bankers have been arrested in London on U.S. charges of alleged involvement in a fraud involving $2 billion in loans to state-owned companies in Mozambique. Okay. Mozambique's former finance minister, Manuel Chang, sounds kind of Chinese to me, Chang, and a senior executive from the shipbuilder Primavest Group, Jean Battistani, have also been arrested in South Africa and New York, respectively, in recent days. The action by U.S. authorities came 2 months after the Serious Fraud Office in the UK abandoned its investigation. Okay? So, right off the bat, you got to think, all right, historically, what's been happening with China throughout Africa. You got to understand think about some of the debt trap tactics used, not only via the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, but Chinese banks in loaning to African countries for their infrastructure upgrades. Organized theft. Okay. Now here is the U.S. stepping up to the plate after all these years of by the Serious Fraud Office in the U.K. Well, you've got to also take recent activities with respect to what China's doing between Canada and some of the tit-for-tat arrests that have been made also. Okay. It said U.S. prosecutors allege the former Credit Suisse bankers intentionally circumvented anti-fraud measures set in place by their employer between 2011 and 2013. Bing, 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 bing. So now, because here we are, I'm in South Carolina, got to think, all right, back in 2011 through 2013, what was happening with Westvaco, Chicago Bridge and Iron, and the Fairfield County nuclear power plant. What negotiations were also going on with how Westvaco was competing for certain construction contracts with nuclear power plants there in Africa. So all of that is behind the scenes in this article, which this article doesn't even allude to. Okay. So I'm going to link to this article for you to read and then think about. Once again, you're going to say, well, Chris, why does this apply to me? Lights once again. I seriously got to fix that. Anyway, how it applies to you. Well, your taxes, my taxes, and how it's being allocated to these various African countries in support of security operations. We're paying them to be there. In Djibouti, 50, 70, 80 million dollars a year. Okay? So all of that is underlying a lot of this. Okay? How that data manipulation. And then here they have Credit Suisse under a vice. Going back 2011, 2013. Think of the Panama Papers. Think of the squeeze and leverage between the IMF and some of the full disclosure for tax avoidance that countries were, imposing on the Swiss banks. Okay, so all of that those past data points come into play. Because going forward, both locally, state, federal, and then international, these have ripple effects. Pensions. There's a reason this is in the Guardian and not the state newspaper, or not, Post and Courier locally, or any other paper that I've skimmed through today. So that is how, certain newspapers and news organizations use information strategically. When you read this, where there's smoke, there's fire. These three bankers and people involved with Credit Suisse, IMF, and the communications and the data going back and forth for, the U.S. authorities to step up now and make arrests. Is it because they have certain information that they did not share with the UK? Or is it because it is information that they did share with the UK, but politically they've waited to this time during government shutdown and other Chinese maneuvers within Africa for political leverage, financial leverage. Most people in Mozambique, they don't have a clue. Most people here in America don't really have a clue. I mean, how many people in America are going to read this article and then really stop to think about it? They read the article. Oh, well, they got three people for, bilking Mozambique $2 billion. Yay! But now think of the timing. Time. And think about the Credit Suisse stock positions on markets worldwide. and how people who have been sitting on this information for, 5 years can actually play short positions or long positions based upon when this article comes out. Once again, organized theft. So, my position was Spay War Atlantic. How would holes in this data affect how analysts, 18, 19, 30 years old, 60 years old, based upon what they have knowledge of and how it is presented to them, for them to even make, strategic decisions. This is another example. This is why I encourage you to provide these links to have some conversation with your friends. Yes. How often, how much are you going to talk about, Kim Kardashian? Okay, well, the Tigers won. Okay, great. Well, what else you going to talk about? Pension? Power bills? What does your mayor know or not know? What's your city council considering with respect to some of the positions when they go out and to the bond market for funding? Really following up who's buying those bonds. Predicated on what data? Of course, somebody in this article, Tim Jones, policy officer at the Global Debt Monitor Jubilee Debt Campaign. Some, probably nonprofit, which is fine. It's great that they're, somehow a nonprofit has stepped up to the plate, got funding from someone or somewhere to follow some of this stuff. Or non-governmental organization, NGO, attacked the UK's lack of action and said Mozambique should not be expected to repay the loan. Now, the reason I tagged this article, certain excerpts in here, is basically cut and paste from the media interactions between Santee Cooper, SCANA, SCE&G, and Dominion Energy, and what the citizens of South Carolina are being told. It's scandalous that it has required action from the U.S. authorities for this investigation and arrest to be made in London. Now think about that. Think about the U.S. authorities making arrests in London. Think about the data manipulation, timing behind those discussions and timing that's led up to this article. Whew. Oh, Mr. Jones said Credit Suisse should immediately drop its debt claim against the Mozambique people and call on their owners of the debt to do the same. They should pursue the money from the individuals and banks responsible, not the people of Mozambique. Well, think about the ratepayers of South Carolina. Okay? All these little fiefdoms of co-op electric companies, on their knees to Santee Cooper, and then Santee Cooper, holding SCE&G's bonus twinkles. How they paid the bonuses for the SEE&G, CEO and board of directors. The leverage behind that and why it was done that way. It says Omar Romain, one of the Diplomatic and Economic Affairs Department at the Mozambique High Commission in London, confirmed to The Guardian last week that negotiations in London between the government of Mozambique and its creditors had led to an agreement in principle of over 60% of the debt, and that further discussions were underway, an indication that the country would still have to repay its creditors despite the international fraud investigation. Once again, I've stood here too long, going on 16 minutes, and the lights dimmed out on me. So on this first little segment, I'm going to do a little second segment here. Keep this under, right now 16 minutes. That way it won't be too long to upload. But that's why I linked to this article. Okay. Now, the next article is out of Florida, and it's about the Lennar home builder and mortgage companies partnering with offering fraudulent mortgages. So basically, it's a redo of what was happening in 2008 and 2009. The Big Short movie. This stuff never ends. So that's what the second update's going to be about. So right now I want to upload this first segment, put a copy of the link for your consideration, and we'll see you on the flip side of segment 2. Thanks.